Welcome, everybody. It is wonderful to be with you today. We have a great fireside chat planned, highlighting a few emerging technology trends with special attention to the intersection of artificial intelligence and quantum computing. My name is Meg Gleason. I am the head of user experience and product adoption here at QSecure. And for those of you who are here for the first time with us, just a little bit about QSecure. Our charge is to bring post-quantum cybersecurity to government and enterprises to ensure a secure future. We understand that the impact of emerging technologies, including AI and quantum computing, are already here, and our specific cybersecurity solution, QProtect, leverages today's technologies to bring post-quantum protection to all endpoints in a network. Our agenda for our webinar today is jam-packed. We're going to highlight a few emerging trends in the cybersecurity landscape today, and overview quantum computing and AI, and our wonderful fireside chat experts will highlight several benefits of combining these technologies and how to protect together. We'll also share some considerations for protecting your critical data today and how you can leverage additional innovations with quantum and AI in the near future. There'll be a short Q&A at the end of the webinar, so feel free to type in your questions and contact information into the chat or send an email to info@qsecure.com. Our team would absolutely love to connect with you. And the presentation will also be recorded and available on our website, qsecure.com, and through our YouTube. So go ahead and follow us on that channel. All right, next slide. We have some wonderful speakers here with us today. Our fireside chat will be led by Rebecca Crothamer, co-founder and chief product officer at QSecure. She's a Forbes 30 Under 30 in quantum computing. Rebecca has been named top 12 women in quantum computing, and she is a member of the Global Futures Council for Quantum Computing at the World Economic Forum. And we will also be having wonderful Tom Patterson with us. He is the Managing Director for Emerging Technology Security at Accenture Global Quantum Security Leader, including Strategy, Discovery, PQC, and QKD at Accenture. He joined their leadership team to continue his mission to secure the world's critical infrastructure through the secure application of quantum, AI, ML, 5 and 6G, and space technologies. Tom has led post-quantum crypto agility projects for Global 1000 company, as well as in an earlier life, he worked on post-quantum crypto agility rollout. Tom continues to support White House, Congress, and federal law enforcement intelligence and counterintelligence communities, and frequently speaks at events such as the World Economic Forum, Davos, and Cybersecurity Futures, as well as Financial Times and others. He has served as the National Security Telecom Communications Advisory Committee, where he was point of contact for the last 3 U.S. presidents. Tom, we are absolutely thrilled to have you here with us today for the fireside chat. Now, to jump into it, let's talk about this intersection of these two buzzwords. Quantum computing and AI are, two great buzzwords that have very much permeated our vocabulary in recent times. As more people become aware of AI and even experience it, we can think of no better time to start highlighting what the road ahead looks like when AI is paired with quantum computing and considerations for securing these artificially intelligent systems. Now, let's lay some foundation, starting with quantum computing. Quantum computing, as we like to say, is a different kind of number crunching device that can handle a lot more variables than a traditional computer. By leveraging particular phenomena of quantum mechanics, quantum computing can process vast amounts of information and complex problems with great efficiency and speed that our current classical computers simply cannot achieve. And as Uncle Ben from Spider-Man popularized, with great power comes great responsibility. In particular, you may have heard of Shor's algorithm, which poses a significant threat to traditional cryptography, i.e. the encryption methods that we trust today to secure our most sensitive data. And this threat is not far off, and in fact is already compromising our national security, trade secrets, financial information, and more, thanks to the store now, decrypt later attacks, or harvest now, decrypt later. These attacks target critical data with long shelf lives for decryption once a strong enough quantum computer arrives. But there's also great potential for good considering quantum computers. Many industries stand to benefit from expedited data analysis thanks to quantum computing-led faster insights in decision-making. Across many industries, positive and impactful innovations are near on the horizon. Let's for a moment consider healthcare. Imagine drug discovery with the power of quantum computing channeled to stimulate molecular interaction, pushing new treatments and therapies to those in need at speeds never before seen. In the world of finance, quantum computing can help perform complex calculations, optimizing trade strategies in real time. And as we look at the supply chain, with complex networks making their most of their resources allocation and reducing costs, risks, and environmental impact thanks to quantum computing. The ability of quantum computers to solve complex mathematical problems can truly unlock unprecedented possibilities in many fields. Next slide, please. Now, it's hard these days to ignore the hype around AI, from narrow AI out in the world in forms of Siri and Alexa, to deep learning applied to bringing about self-driving cars, and of course, generative AI in the help of ChatGPT and things like Adobe Firefly, to deep learning. Artificial intelligence is a growing presence in our daily lives. Now we're going to cut through some of the hype for just a second and bring it back to the basics. AI is a term for making sense of data. AI is like a math equation. It takes in data and outputs interpretations that help make sense of data, and typically a lot of it, ultimately helping to guide decision-making. And as we dive into the particulars of the intersection of quantum and AI in this fireside chat, fundamentally, these powerful technologies on their own and mutually beneficial are powerful on their own and also mutually beneficial when combined. So let's think for a second. What does quantum do for AI? Well, quantum computing can significantly enhance AI's capabilities in a few ways, one of which being quantum computing's superior processing power, which can enable quicker data analysis, potentially making machine learning algorithms more efficient and powerful. Quantum can also boost AI's optimization, and there's great potential for neural network simulation here. Now, what does AI do for quantum? AI can act as a powerful tool for managing and optimizing the complex systems of quantum computing, enhancing their operation with better error correction and more optimized protocols. Next slide, please. Now, as I said at the beginning, it's our mission to secure the future, and we aim to help answer today what these technologies can do for cybersecurity. As noted earlier, quantum computing has the potential to expose critical data, and as McKinsey notes here, some of the prime targets are these sectors primarily in the right upper corner. And aided by AI, the timeline for those capabilities is shortening. At the same time, new ways to protect your critical data are emerging. Post-quantum cryptography that can secure data gains against classical and quantum computers in a particular way is rightly gaining a lot of traction in public awareness. It was recently added to Gartner's most recent hype cycle, and similarly to PQC, generative cybersecurity AI was noted by Gartner as an early innovation with great potential to add security strategies in the near future. We are in a sweet spot here where this highly mature technology of PQC is underhyped and allows you to capture the most value of its potential while it's not yet widely recognized. Next slide, please. We at QSecure, along with our wonderful partners, including Accenture, who are here to help you take full advantage of this underhyped and fully developed technology of PQC to help protect your critical data today. Accenture and Tom in particular have been great champions in helping enterprise organizations and government prepare for quantum, and we are absolutely thrilled to partner with them. Our QProtect solution helps you protect your critical data today without any rip and replace. We aim to enable you to take full advantage of your cryptography and prepare you today and tomorrow for any threats that come. QProtect helps equip you with insights into your cryptography with advanced monitoring and gives you critical controls, including cryptographic agility, which we'll discuss further today. QProtect is easy to deploy, and you can protect your communications and data in transit at scale now. I'll turn it over to Rebecca and Tom for the fireside chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Meg. That was a great intro. And Tom, it is such a pleasure to have you here today. If you've been following quantum cybersecurity or cybersecurity in general over the last couple decades, you have probably either seen Tom speak or read his work. So Tom, it's an honor to work with you, and it's an honor to have you. And you are really the guy at Accenture who is building the future. And I think, through Accenture, really Accenture sets the tone for how technology is adopted in the world. So really cool work. And I think first off, love to ask you how you ended up here in this space.
Well, first off, thank you, Meg. I thought it was a really good, clear, broad overview of where we are today, and appreciate you helping kick this off. And Becca, always happy to come in and talk with you, whether there's a camera rolling or not. People that have focused on this from the technology as you have, from the science, and really look for ways to bring the good out of this new technology. It's the future of the world, and I'm thrilled to work with you and the whole Q-Secure team. So great to be here, and really excited. I have been through a lot of the cybersecurity history, and I, unlike you, am not a PhD quantum scientist. When I got involved in quantum security in 2015, these briefings were just going right over my head. I was advising the White House on a plan called the National Cyber Moonshot, which was where we were asked by, at the time, President Obama, to look at, around the year 2030, and what would the technology landscape look like for the government and for the critical infrastructure? What would it look like then? And then what would the threats be then? And then the third part of the question is, what should we do about it now, so that we end up with a better result at the end of this coming decade? And that started a change in my career, started a 10-year program from the White House, now throughout the government, from executive orders to money in Congress to changes in regulations, and great work at NIST, all coming together around helping combat the bad that's coming from this technology and leverage the good. So in the moonshot, we looked at key technologies, and they included, and we focused on only a handful, but they included quantum computing and the risks that would come with that. They included AI and generative AI that were just coming online at that point. Both quantum computers and generative AI were much more being briefed by papers as opposed to products. You should be able to have a 2-qubit machine. Sort of, kind of, maybe for a millisecond you can. But just fast forward over these last, whatever it's been, 7, 8 years since then, tremendous progress in adoption. You can't walk 2 feet now in a boardroom without getting questioned on both AI and quantum. Is it real? What does it mean to us? Where is it? So been through a lot of the technology change. When I didn't start as a technologist. I worked in the national security industry, and as a kid was kind of a grunt. And one of my jobs was key management, which sounds just like what we're talking about today. But that job was actually taking little spools of blue paper tape with holes punched in them at random places, and carrying that to different parts of the world covertly, and sticking that into a machine to generate the keys to decrypt things. That was key management in my lifetime. We've come an awfully long way, and this is so exciting to be at the ground floor of this new technology. I counsel mentor a lot of kids coming out of college now, or what to study and what to go into. And some people, they watch the news and they see AI is going to take all the jobs away. AI is going to make so many cool new jobs. It's going to change the jobs, and quantum's going to change the jobs. But there's so much good that's coming from these new technologies, and the chance to be part of that in these current generations is just really exciting. So happy to be here. I was really happy I joined Accenture a year ago, specifically to go out and reach all the great clients of the world that Accenture has, and help drive this new secure use of this new technologies that we know are coming, drive that into the regular and daily use. And we're well on our way there.
Oh man, such a cool background. And one thing of note, I think while the spools may not be feasible today, they were resilient to quantum attack.
They were, but they did not fare well to fire.
Oh, well, that's a different story.
A different type of attack.
different type of attack. From the White House to the border, we're seeing kind of the work that you contributed to at that time really come to fruition, and that those foundations are really building on themselves now. And last year we saw, of course, the multiple executive memos, the bill that was passed in December mandating upgrades to quantum safe technologies. So it must be really cool to kind of see that start to come to fruition. And now you are with Accenture, you get pulled in a lot into these boardrooms, as you were saying. To people come to Accenture and to your team to help demystify these complex spaces. So when you go into these boardrooms, these are smart people who have a lot of things to worry about. So they need to really grasp the important pieces of what these technologies mean to them in their organization. So what kind of things do you tell them when you go in and give these briefs?
Well, it's a great question. It's a question that comes up almost every day of my work day of my life these days. But I do want to point out, since you gave me that glowing introduction, I am not a one-man show. Accenture has 750,000 people around the world. They've been doing all these security and all these technologies in their labs, in our labs for 7 or 8 years. I have a wonderful team. We have teams all over the world in terms of scale and capabilities of delivery. So I just didn't want to leave that there. We deliver in most countries of the world these same kind of uniform upgrades to a quantum security defense, artificial intelligence defense that we can in any other part of the world. So I just got to put that out there. But we do spend a lot of time in boardrooms, myself and my team around the world. And boards are interesting. I've been a board member of 3 different public companies over my career. Not one now, but have been there. And generally, I've been the most technical of the board members. I'm not a finance guy, and I don't come up from a venture background and things. So I'm brought on because they want the technologist view of what's real, what should we be doing, what shouldn't we be doing, how much should we be spending, proportions, what's everybody else doing. But nowadays, board members all have the same exact questions around quantum security. Is it real, or is it just science fiction? Is this just hype? Are we playing buzzword bingo again? And it's easy to see that. I mean, the hype cycles, they start early and run often. So I understand why the board members feel that way. And also, if you think back, you certainly know, Einstein famously looked at some of the principles of quantum mechanics back in the 1960s. And what did he say? They are spooky. So if Einstein thought it was spooky, what's a board member to do in this day and age? So a lot of them just have punted, and we need to get past that. So I generally come in, I go up on the whiteboard. I never use PowerPoint. I don't have a slide deck. I go into their whiteboards and I just write the number 15 in the middle of the whiteboard, nice big numerals. And I said, so if you take the number 3 and the number 5, and you multiply it together, what do you get? And most board members can pretty much work that out on their fingers and toes and get to 15. And I said, that's how public key encryption works today. That's that shared secret that we talk about. That's what somebody came up with, or people came up with, 25, 30 years ago, as a way, with the principle that it's easy for a calculator or a computer to multiply 3 times 5 and come up with the answer. But it's hard, or in their case, back and then, impossible to take that 15 and factor it and say, what were the 2 prime numbers that were used to multiply to get to 15? Now, obviously, if it's small numbers like 3 and 5 and 15, everybody can do it. But the principle is the same. Now, just make a really big number instead of 3 and a really big other number instead of 5 and multiply it together and get a really bigger number, and you have that shared secret. And that is the premise of our public key encryption today, is that we can get to that number 15, but we can't break it down. We can't factor it. with computers. And even with the best supercomputer that we can possibly imagine ever coming in our lifetime, it would take so many thousands of lifetimes in order to crack that it's not worth even thinking about. So we've been safe for a long time with that premise. Now comes along a quantum computer that can do amazing things, lots of amazing things. But one of the amazing things a quantum computer can do, in theory, is factor numbers of any size almost instantly. So the whole concept of multiplying 3 times 5 and sharing the 15, that goes away. We can't use that as the way to keep our information safe anymore. So we need to come up with a different way. And I talk like that to board members. And board members get that. They're smart people. They've gotten to where they are in their lives. They're not intimidated by 3 times 5. They get it. And so we work from there and then move on and say, okay, since we know we have to change, now what does that mean? How often is this old way, this vulnerable way, used in your organization? And they look to the CTO, and the CTO goes, I don't know. We've never had that question before. Accenture is a highly acquisitive company. We acquire companies all the time and have for a long time. Every company we buy, then where did they get their encryption, and where does that go? A lot of organizations are so complex they don't know. So that we tell them, well, you should start to figure that out. You should start to discover where your vulnerabilities are, and then you should work with sort of the best practices and standards to upgrade that to a different way to share your secrets, because you need to share your secrets. And you know that this capability is coming in these quantum computers. Can't tell you when, but it's coming. Probably during your career, it's coming. My career, it's coming. So we know that's coming. So let's get ahead of the game and start working. And then finally, I close with this concept of a quantum security maturity index. Board members love maturity indexes. Things like CMMI, if you've got security people in the audience, and many other indexes. That way a board member doesn't have to know what the maturity of a particular type of cybersecurity is and all the details. They just need to know we're at level 1. Our 2 biggest competitors are at level 2. So if I give you $5 million in 2 years, will you get us to level 2? And the team says, yeah, okay, good. And so there isn't that for quantum security yet. And so everywhere I go around the world, whether it's groups or CEOs or technology companies like yourself, I share this idea of let's come together with a common language, a common set of definitions, and let's agree on an index for adopting quantum security. Do you have a strategy? Do you understand the risk and understand where your vulnerabilities will be? Have you done your discovery? Okay, that's level 1. Then, okay, have you looked at your ecosystem of all the other companies? That's level 2, and then 3. And so, I believe there's 8 steps that every company is going to go through. Board members understand those 8 steps. They get it, and then they can work with. Hopefully, by this time next year, there'll be a widely accepted maturity index for quantum security. And I leave boardrooms with a lot of heads going up and down instead of left and right, where they're saying, okay, I get this. So I know the questions to ask my team, and I know how long to give them. And then once I hear their answers, we'll get to the next step of decision making. But right now, we've got to ask these questions. And so it's been really good to get the boards on board. The CISOs love it, the CIOs love it, because then they get more budget, they get more attention, they understand that it's a priority risk, and then they're able to slot it in. It's not spooky, it's just math, it's 3 times 5, but we got to do it ahead of the threat becoming real, not the day after.
That's awesome. That is, I think, the clearest explanation I have heard on what the quantum threat is and what you do to address it. I think even Einstein would be able to understand your explanation. You said a lot, and there's a lot of different things that I want to dig into. I think first, before we go dive into the post quantum side, everybody's talking about generative AI, right? Hence this webinar, right? There's this idea of this new, well, generative AI, as we know, it's not new, but it's really coming into the collective mind. And so when we have these big models, right, we're sharing a lot of data, we're consuming a lot of data, there's a lot of data involved. So when you go in and you talk about generative AI, how do you talk about securing them, and then ultimately how we need to protect them against that quantum threat?
Well, this is just a little bit of insight into me and how I operate. I try and break everything down to easy things that everybody can handle and everybody can understand, where you have a common starting point. Is to do complex negotiations and just sort of bring it down to, where is everybody comfortable? What do we all agree on these things? So I go back with AI to 5 and 3. A different 5 and 3, but still 5 and 3. So there's 5 areas that I talk about with generative AI that are going to impact a company. And I just walk through them. And again, CEOs and boards, they understand these things, but they maybe don't equate them with all the hype around ChatGPT and how fast it's used, and how everybody from 100-year-olds to 3-year-olds are all using the same ChatGPT and getting the same kinds of results. So there's five areas where this hits. The compute. Most companies have no idea how much compute power and therefore cost is involved in running generative AI. It's massive. And right now it's free, or it's shielded from them. But like every maturing technology, someone's got to pay the piper. And somehow, whether it's giving up all your intellectual property or paying a monthly fee or something, or building your own systems. But the compute power needs to be understood. Second is the data, whether it's training data or the shared data. You need to really understand and focus on where you're getting your data. Who trained it? Was it stolen? Was it biased? Was it consciously biased or unconsciously biased? Probably the answer is yes. Is it transparent enough to make real decisions about that? Most organizations do not have a policy on that, and they need to, and we help them do that here regularly around the world. The third is ecosystem. Figuring out who are your partners going to be for generative AI. It's a whole new cast of characters. It's not necessarily the same ones. There's the handful of companies that most organizations have never heard of today, that have all emerged in the last couple of years, at least into the public consciousness, that offer really valuable parts to the puzzle. And then there's other big companies that have retooled and made themselves really valuable in this space. But figuring out an AI ecosystem separate from your regular tech ecosystem is really important. The fourth is experience. It's really important to have people on staff that have this experience, that have done these programs. It is not good to be led by people who are watching a YouTube video on how to write a prompt. You're going to get in real trouble without having some real experience. And what we found, really to the credit of the way companies have hired and grown their staff, the better companies have people on staff that have experience, that have been doing this, maybe in their spare time, maybe on the side, maybe with Accenture we call it +1 projects, but they have these people. Spend the time to find them, spend the time to listen to them, elevate them, give them a platform to speak. And most big, well-run companies, I think, are going to be pleasantly surprised. I know our clients have by and large been very pleasantly surprised. And then the fifth of 5 is really the talent question in general. Hire people that know this, train people to know this. It's really important to train them on the good uses of AI and the bad ways people are using AI. Let them know the ethics that your organization believes in. Hey, we never use stolen data no matter what. Hey, we never share data no matter what. Or, hey, we do, but everybody's got their own set of ethics. And I'm not here to tell people how to run their lives or run their companies, but what I am telling them to think it through and then train their people. If people don't know what to do, or if they're just told, hey, you're not allowed to use ChatGPT because I read somewhere in the newspaper that it's going to leak all of our secrets. If you just say no, they're going to end up doing it anyway. They're going to go home and do it on their kitchen table to write their report. So teach them what's good, teach them why you don't want them to do bad things, and then bring them on board. I'm a huge fan of making our employee bases around the world part of the collective defense of our organizations, as opposed to somebody that we're fighting against. Bring them in, train them up, get them on the good guys side and empower them to do the right thing. And those are the 5 that we focus on at Accenture. And then the 3 is much more simply put in a governance structure around AI. Figure out what your ethics are and how you're going to govern, and then tell people, promulgate that throughout your organization. Second, build secure enclaves. Set it up in your organization, within your enterprise, where you can let your employees use generative AI in a way that meets all of your security requirements. So generally, it's a one-way diode going in, so you can use large language models, but your data doesn't ever go back up and populate them. And there are nice ways to do that. It's not that hard to set that up, but it's also not automatic. So setting up, building that infrastructure where your organization can use it in a safe and secure way is the second piece. And then the third is really do whatever it takes to start enabling your entire organization to figure out ways to make use of this. This is not something that the use of it should not be IT led. It should be business led, and it should be business from top to bottom. At Accenture, sorry, I'm so excited. At Accenture and with our clients, we've found some of the very best ideas, the best uses of generative AI for business have come from the most unexpected employees throughout these organizations that have the right ideas, that know how to do something better. Maybe they don't know how to write code, but they know how to write a prompt. And if you give them the tools, if you built it, you tell them what your governance rules are, these great programs are coming up that are labor saving or helping grow in all sorts of wonderful new ways. It's just, it's fun to see. So govern, build, and enable are my 3 across the bottom. And at the top, it's compute, data, ecosystem, experience, and talent. Again, 5 and 3, board members get that.
That's awesome. I think it's such an important point too, that people are going to be using this anyway, so embrace it, and that's how you get control of it. That's how you enable a better future with it. And I know there's also a number of positive ways that we can leverage generative AI for things like red teaming. And of course, there are a number of things that they can generate on the threat side. But it's a fantastic framework for really understanding and thinking about these things.
Yeah,
now,
we say you've got AI for good in order to combat the AI for bad.
There you go.
The deep web fakes, and I think that's you, but it might not be you. I can't detect. I'm not smart enough to detect if that's really you or a deep fake, but AI could. AI can tell if it's a fake. So we've got to use AI for good to counter the AI for bad. We know that the bad guys around the world, they existed yesterday. They're probably going to exist tomorrow. These are new tools. Always, there's use of new tools are used first by bad guys and then by good guys. So we know that that's happening, and we see things like worm AI and some other really negative uses of AI. We've got to really move quickly to use AI for good, and that can be either to run things like our managed security services more efficiently and react faster and do things better, but also whole new things like take a look at the video streams and tell me if you think it's a fake or not, or parts of this has been faked or not. So AI for good to be used to combat AI for bad, and then we've got a chance in this world.
I love it. And I think it's such a good message too. We've talked about this. I always like to encourage people to not focus too much on it. I think it's compelling to kind of worry a lot about these technologies, but we all have to collectively be envisioning kind of where we want to go with this and moving fast to enable that, the good side of technology. So I think we all have to make sure that vision of the good is held in mind, so we build towards that. Now going over to the quantum safe side. AI is this thing that is moving and changing and growing and really keeps us on our toes. Quantum too in a lot of ways, but right now, and both you and Meg have explained the quantum threat. I think it's a refreshing threat in that what we know about it now, it's understandable. Shor's algorithm at a certain scale of quantum computer breaks asymmetric encryption. We know ways to address that today. But still we have to address that ever-changing landscape, and I think that's where cryptographic agility comes in, right? Can you tell us in your eyes a little bit about the importance of things like orchestrated crypto agility?
Yeah, so orchestrated crypto agility, I think, is the number one defense today for the quantum computing threat that's coming vis-a-vis the 15 problem. Crypto agility, in its most basic sense, says we can take out an algorithm that's at risk and replace it with an algorithm that's not at risk. That's not so difficult. The key here is orchestrated, because enterprises are complex. There's a lot of instances of these algorithms around. And when you change one, that has a cascade effect. It changes all sorts of other things. And you suddenly have millions, and in some cases, billions of endpoints that all have to interact and all have to be orchestrated. And so we often find clients that want to start with, well, we just need to do these 3 apps. We just fix these 3 apps and we're golden, because these are the most important ones. And they get into that and that cascade effect, and it's like, oh, well, then that touches this, which touches this, which touches this. And if they start looking, well, that means we now need to do like 15,000 apps. That's going to cost $1 million an app and all this stuff, huge amounts of money and time that they don't have. And so that's when we can start talking about orchestrated crypto agility, where you put in a system that moves the ability to swap algorithms without defining what algorithms have to be swapped. And so that's a beautiful thing, because NIST is not quite done with finalizing their candidate algorithms. The world's not quite done kicking them in the sides to see what'll happen. And stuff is going to happen. It's going to either require wholesale changes or, more, in my mind, probably more tweaks and coverage around these things. But they're not quite done, and yet there are risks today. You have clients, we have clients that are having their data stolen today on the chance that, on the hope that the people stealing it will be able to have access to a future quantum computer that can crack the code. That's not theory anymore. That happens day in and day out for our clients and yours. So we know that this is going on. I have one client that says, we really like QKD. We like this concept of using, quantum physics to defend ourselves and have perfect. And so we've been going that way, except we just discovered, bad guys in our enterprise that are stealing our encrypted data. And so we need that to stop. We need to stop the bleeding now. We can't wait for QKD. And so let's go to crypto. And first the question is, which algorithm do we move to? And then the concept of crypto agility comes in. But going to an orchestrated way, an elegant orchestrated way where you can actually do this without a huge amount of cost, without a huge amount of ripping apart all the different apps that are out there and all the web browsers in the world. And all of that, there's shortcuts, basically, and there's orchestrated ways to do this in a crypto agile way. And so we found that it helps not just solve today's steal now, decrypt later problems that a number of our clients have around the world, but it is also just a strong way to operate your cryptography. Who knows what the future holds? Quantum computers can do a lot of things. One of them is going to be run Shor's algorithm, but what else? If you've got a quantum computer with 4,000 stable qubits, it's going to be able to do a lot of crazy things that no one's thought about today. And so having the ability to rotate algorithms out in real time based on real-time threats that are coming up, that's a really nice position to be in, so that when that headline hits the Wall Street Journal that says, adversary country A now has access to a quantum computer that can decrypt all your public key, so therefore your entire organization is at risk, being just turned off. Your trust dissolves overnight. If you've already done the work up front and you put in crypto agility and say, okay, well, if that algorithm is at risk, boop, we'll switch it, rotate everything to an algorithm that's not at risk, we're good. And that's where we want our most critical clients to be, at least the day before those threats happen. And that's what crypto agility can deliver. We often hear, well, we'll just wait for NIST to finalize everything and then, for it to be out there for a few years, because no one really knows when Q day is coming. That is an approach that a lot of people take. because they didn't think they had an alternative. When we explained to them that orchestrated quantum or crypto agility is available today, is able to be delivering against these new threats that are there today, as well as be your rocket ship into the future, then they have that alternative. Then it's their fiduciary responsibility to do the right thing and build that into their 5-year plan.
Yeah, I think it's such an important thing and just for the audience to kind of define some of these terms. Once again, so we have this idea of store now or harvest now, decrypt later, and it is that idea that as data travels across networks, you can sit in and intercept that data, and we often trust that in secure applications that is properly encrypted. And of course, the problem is that a lot of times that data has a shelf life. You want it to remain secure. So if it's harvested today, again, as Tom was saying, we know that this is happening. It needs to be properly encrypted if you want that data to remain private in, as Tom said, the lifespan of your career.
And just on that, Becca, just on that, I mean, things like, just to add to our buzzword bingo problem that we have, zero trust is a thing. Everybody's trying to get to zero trust. Well, the way you're enforcing that zero trust in most cases is you're encrypting. So if you're encrypting, using encryption as your enforcement mechanism in zero trust, and you're using an encryption algorithm known to be able to be broken, you don't have a model. That model needs to be changed. The second, the biggest move of the past 5 years and probably for the next 5 is going to be cloud. We're going to have endpoints and clouds, and all of our data has to flow back and forth. Cloud, endpoint, this cloud, that cloud, hybrid cloud, clouds moving around. How is that safe? Oh, because we encrypt all of that data in motion. And so those are the vulnerable parts, and where you start to share data that is really scary to think about. In a few years, our adversary could just decrypt it and then have all of the secrets that you've built your life around. That's not good. And so being able to use an algorithm that's not susceptible to that coming quantum computer that they'll have in a few years makes sense today.
Yeah, and kind of speaking of that, the adversary side, I think we've seen a lot of, and some of the work that you did with Moonshot, and then we've seen the action, the government action in these past couple of years around addressing this threat. And I think especially because they understand the urgency of that harvest now, decrypt later from a national security perspective. And given your background, would love to hear your thoughts on the national security, nation state threat side of quantum advancement in AI.
And so you read about countries putting so many billions in dollars towards quantum computing. Part of that is because they want to be able to create the new drug and do all these wonderful things at the molecular level. That's all for good. But they also all have intelligence apparatuses that want to create a cryptographically relevant quantum computer, and they're spending a ton of money to get there. When they do, the first thing that they do is not going to be put out a press release and say, hey, we won. The first thing they're going to do is go steal as much as they can and hope that their adversaries don't figure out that they've got one. So it's one of the deepest, darkest secrets that every big developed country has right now, is where is their own cryptographically relevant quantum computer program. So we know that that's going on around the world. We don't know exactly who's doing what to whom and what they've got. We occasionally hear this or that, and some of that is released, and most of that probably isn't. But we're not going to know for sure. We just know from a technical perspective, and people like yourself, the PhD scientists and all this, what's coming. There's the qubit race, obviously, but we don't want to needlessly contribute to hype. It's not just qubits and getting to 4,000, but it's the noise that comes with them, and getting to 4,000 stable qubits could mean a factor of 1,000 more. For every one qubit, you might need 1,000 of them to cut through the noise. So there's also this great advances in cutting through the noise and filters and making much better sense there. So we've got great advances there. We've got this concept of hybrid cryptographically relevant quantum computers coming. So use the biggest quantum computer you can possibly build today and a supercomputer or massively parallel set of fast computers and hybrid them together to break down sort of a derivative of Shor's kind of algorithm to be cryptographically relevant, sooner. We know all that's coming. We absolutely know that there's lots of countries and probably some large organized crime groups around the world that are working on doing exactly that. So since we know that that's there, and we have seen documented instances where publicly encrypted information is being stolen. So why would that be stolen? Why would people waste their time breaking in to steal something that they can't read? So we're putting that 2 and 2 together, and in my case, getting 15. So we know that what's going on in that world, even without knowing what's going on. You see the groups that know the most. The President of the United States is in a position to know a lot more than you and I are in a position to know. What's the president doing? He's issuing executive order after executive order after executive order, ordering the U.S. federal government to upgrade now and recommending that any organization that is in the critical infrastructure, and there's 17 critical infrastructure sectors, so it's a lot of industry out there, recommending, because the government can't force them to change their security, but recommending strongly that they start now. And you look at groups like the Financial Services ISAC, their recommendation this year, start now. Everybody's saying the same thing, start now. If the groups that know the most are saying start now, then I think that's a good indicator of what's going on in the NatSec world.
And I think, on that note, I think you break it down really well in terms of giving people a first step. I think oftentimes people will look at this whole ecosystem and say, well, okay, start now, but this seems like a big thing. So one final question on quantum safe technologies and AI. Your entry point is often coming in to do discovery and inventory. Can you tell me tell the audience just a little bit about what that looks like and maybe how you leverage AI for that?
Yeah, so at Accenture, our goal with our quantum security team is to meet our clients wherever they are on that 8-step journey. So a lot of clients are just at the strategy. Tom, come in and talk to our board and answer the 10 most common questions that board members ask. We have a program for that with the 10 questions. And I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what industry they are, it doesn't matter what country I'm in. All it changes is the translation for the language. It's the same questions that every board member has that they want to get answered. They want to get asked, and they want to get it answered. So we start at the very beginning. We have a full quantum security strategy program right at the beginning, because we don't recommend just jumping in and starting to do things. I've met a lot of companies that said, oh yeah, we just have this smart person in the lab, and he's downloaded the latest NIST algorithm, so he's just going to swap it out for us. We do not recommend that. Start with the strategy, then go in, and that's when the strategy will then recommend discovery. You can't figure out how big your breadbox is, how much is it going to cost, how long will it take, until you've discovered how many and where your vulnerable algorithms are, and that takes some time. And so we found that about 50% of that discovery is pretty straightforward. The companies can do it themselves. We come in oftentimes and do it very organized and efficiently and find half of it. The other half, we like to use specialized tools that go in, and they now have AI backends attached to them. So they not only find instances of public key algorithms that are out there, they can look at the key pairs, they can look at the provenance of that cryptography. There's something called a C-bomb. If your viewers remember the talk about S-bombs over the past few years, a software bill of materials, there's now a concept of a cryptography bill of materials. AI can pull that together. It can tie into a quantum risk assessment that's done during the strategy phase. They can say, well, yes, this is a vulnerable algorithm, but it's only carrying, apple pie recipes, so it doesn't matter. Or it's carrying, the most sensitive information we have that has to survive 20 years. it will know that and then start to put together in an automated fashion a report that says, with very quickly, here's where you start, and then this is what you do next, and this is what you do next, and here's where you have to really race. Those AI-backed tools on the backs of discovery have been invaluable for the second half of that discovery phase, making sure it's not only very efficient in terms of time and cost, but it's done very completely. So you don't worry about getting an answer that doesn't mean anything, or getting the wrong answer, or getting false positives. So we love to use AI for good in the discovery phase.
Love it. And you mentioned that oftentimes companies will come in and say, oh, we'll do this rip and replace approach. We'll look at our cryptography, we'll take it out, we'll hard code something back in and call it a day. And when an additional plug for crypto agility, again, as you were saying, you can also configure it, orchestrated crypto agility. In particular, you can configure it to layer post-quantum over current classical encryption. So there's zero risk to upgrading today. You can also layer PQC algorithms together in different ways, and algorithms that are based on different mathematical principles, so that if one were to be vulnerable into the future, the data that you've protected with those layered algorithms is still secure. So yet another plug for orchestrated crypto agility.
And where that really plays in is when the realization light bulb goes off with enterprise leaders that say, oh, well, wait a minute, it's not just my machines and my wires, but we're part of an ecosystem. We use this software as a service vendor for accounting. We use a different one for sales management. We use a different one for this. We use different cloud over here, and all. What are they doing? So one of the most valuable things that Accenture has brought to our clients is we have a quantum vendor database, a quantum security vendor database. So we look at the most common products that deal with encryption, that use encryption for part of their job. And we've gone out, we've got our own group of PhD scientists and cryptographers. We've gone out and spent time with these companies to figure out what are their plans for upgrading to their own quantum defense. And so we can now start to piece together, well, if you're going to use this HSM and this PKI machine and this server and this router, you want to get them all in the same family. If they're all going this way, they're all going that way, and sort of piece together something. So having that vendor database has just been huge labor saving for our clients, since they can go in authoritatively and see which ones are doing. And then using orchestrated crypto agility, you're able to sort of impedance match, if you will, the different things that are out there and switch algorithms where necessary.
Well, have one final question for you. And the question is, how do you envision the state of cybersecurity 10 years from now? And you were thinking about 2036, 5 or 6 years ago. So excited to hear, and we were talking about envisioning that bright future and creating this technology for good. So I would love to hear your thoughts on what it does look like 10 years from now.
Well, I think I love the question. I love looking ahead. I've always, at least the second half of my career, been very focused on sort of forward-looking and doing a real focused and educated approach, and not just jumping on bandwagons and things, but really working through problems with experts. And was able to spend a lot of time working on the 2030 problem with the moonshot. Beyond that, I tell you where I'm most excited is space. We are doing things in space. We're recording this on the 11th and the 12th. NASA's launching the Psyche probe, which is going to start, it'll be the first probe to start mining minerals in space. There's going to go mine minerals off of an asteroid. Won't be ready for 6 years, but we're starting tomorrow to go out and do that. What we're able to do in zero gravity with pharma and create drugs in space, and then using quantum computers in space, where you've already got the absolute cold that's necessary both to do the quantum computing, and you've got quantum communications working much better in space than it does through fiber on Earth. So I'm really excited about making space part of our everyday life. starting next year, most of our cell phones will have something called sat to cell. Some of them already do. So if you are out of range of a cell tower, which is where a lot of us live, you'll just automatically, your signal will route through a low Earth orbit satellite, and you won't even know it. But we're going to start to have that be very commonplace. Everyone's going to upgrade their phone next year because you're all going to want sat to cell, and it's coming out in chipsets, and it's coming out with different groups that have constellations of low Earth orbit satellites, manufacturing, building bases on the moon, the lunar surface. There's a housing project that's being funded by NASA to go out and have robotic house building with 3D printers on the surface of the moon. All that is going to be able to do computing in space, going to do communications through space, going to be able to do manufacturing of things in space, mining in space. I think that's going to really be a whole nother level. You know, as Roddenberry said, the final frontier. It's certainly the next frontier, and I think that's going to be really exciting to add to it. And honestly, we're going to need AI and we're going to need quantum compute in order to do there and get there. So we got to get to it now, make sure we do it safely.
That's awesome. I did not know that about satellites. And I think before you threw out a stat about how many satellites we will have in the sky at the end of the decade, and it blew my mind. It's like an order of magnitude more than we have now, right?
There's 6,000 or 7,000 now. I think when I gave that talk earlier this year, there was 5,000. Now there's 6,000 or 7,000. We think we're going to be over 100,000 satellites by 2030 in space, worldwide. And it's because anybody can launch one. The cost has gone from tens of millions to tens of thousands to build and launch your own satellite. And there are precious few rules governing the use up there around the world. So it's a really exciting time. But again, space security is just like we've got to put bring security to quantum and AI. We'll be bringing it at Accenture. That's the third leg of my group is really bringing cyber into space. You know, we talk about cyberspace all the time as an industry, but Accenture, we're really bringing cyber into space next.
Man, we live in such a cool time, and thank you, Tom. I rest better at night knowing that you and your team are making sure that that future is more secure. And with that, I think we probably don't have a ton of time for questions, but if you share a question in the chat and you include, or you DM us your email address, we will get back to all of those questions.
Yeah, I'm happy to follow up offline with anybody that has questions and wants to discuss anything further as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tom. I always walk away from our conversations feeling smarter than I did before. Appreciate having you. And thank you, everybody.